Let's have a nice warm welcome for Miss Sonequa MartinGreen. Here she comes! Back again.
So good to be here. Hi, everybody.
So much has changed in a year.
Yes, it has.
Oh, God.
It's crazy that it's been a year since we were all here. That's crazy.
How many months is a typical season production cycle?
7 or 8.
Oh, it's big.
Yeah. It takes a while, you know, to do the. I mean, we did 15 season 1, 14 season 2. I think we're gonna head for 13 season 3.
Is word out about? You have an epic season opener to season 3. Is word out about where you went?
Yeah, so at San Diego Comic-Con for our panel, Alex Kurtzman, our co-showrunner, along with Michelle Paradise. Yay, Michelle! She's our new.
She's here.
Oh, yes, she is. I don't know where
Yay,
you are.
Michelle.
I love you. Look at her. Yes. She's our new co-showrunner. She's brilliant. But anyway, so we spoiled that we don't land in Terra Elysium like we planned. So yikes.
Do they know where you shot, or?
Oh yes, do you guys know we shot in Iceland
Iceland.
for a little while?
Amazing.
Which was incredible.
How did it look? Like gorgeous?
Yeah, I didn't know much about Iceland. I had only heard about the, Iceland is green and Greenland is icy, that thing. But the terrain is breathtaking. So everywhere you look, it's just God, divine, with the glaciers and the waterfalls and the moss fields and everything. It was daylight 24 hours a day and we never acclimated, but that was, a fun price to pay.
We have a long journey ahead of us. We're going to retrace your early life, your career, and then we're going to sink our teeth into Michael Burnham and kind of follow her amazing, circuitous track. Tell me about Russellville, Alabama. I don't really know much about it.
Oh man, Russellville, Alabama is quintessential as it relates to being a southern town, right? It's what you think of when you think of the Deep South. So it's really small, the roots are deep. It's very rich in family and food, very slow, very charming.
Old or?
I would say so. I would say it has that sort of history. That history is always there in the air in the South, though, in my opinion. But I love it. I love my hometown. I'm proud to be from there. I love my people.
And can you tell us a little bit about your family? You have a sister and a few stepsisters.
I do. Yeah. I have one sister that I grew up with. We called each other soulmate. We've always been super close. And I have 3 much older sisters. We didn't grow up with them. But yeah, and then I have a really huge family, actually on both sides. I grew up in Russellville with my maternal family, and 26 first cousins.
Nice.
Yeah, so Christmas used to be like squeezed tight in grandmama's house,
It's so nice though, I love giant
It
family.
really is. And then my dad's side of the family is from Michigan, and that's a really big family as well. Yeah, Flint actually. But yeah, so I come from a big family on both sides.
Very, very nice. I understand that you had some interest in psychology as you were growing up, and were you thinking at one point that was going to be your career track, or?
Yeah, I did. I thought that I would be a psychologist when I was in high school. And, of course, there's a lot of psychology in the craft of acting, right? I didn't realize until I was about 16 that I was supposed to be an actor, but before that, yeah, I thought I'd be a psychologist.
When you went to University of Alabama, was that your major, or was theater?
No, not at all. It was theater.
By the time you got there,
exactly.
You were thinking about theater.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've had some work on the stage, and just talk about that a little bit. That's a whole different kind of muscle.
It is a different muscle, right?
Exercise.
It's completely different. All the different mediums requires such different things from you as an artist. But I got my start in theater because that's where I was trained. So still to this day, I feel at home in theater. And once I left school and moved straight to New York with smoke behind me, with my sister and with my best friend at the time, Taylor Curtis actually is his name, and my sister's name is Nikisha, by the way. But yeah, I didn't do as much theater as I thought I was going to do. Actually, I did do an off-Broadway show. I did some regional theater, which is actually where I met my husband Kenrick, and yeah. I'm so dramatic. I can't help it. And yeah, and then I did some workshops, some equity workshops. But then I soon got into TV, a little bit of film, and then TV. And so I haven't done any theater in a really long time.
Now, I was telling you that I had a chance to watch Toe to Toe recently. Has anybody seen that amazing film, Toe to Toe? Not too many people.
That's a secret. Toe to Toe.
It's a remarkable film. It's about a couple of young ladies in sports, and they come from completely different backgrounds. You have a friend who is blonde and white, and becomes increasingly promiscuous and seems to be spiraling out of control. You come from a maternal upbringing where you've got a mom who is a little bit, I think, emotionally disconnected, but a grandmother who is very focused on seeing that you get the education that you want. You go into a high school, a prep school. Right. And so she keeps you very, very grounded, but the relationship between you and the other character is sort of the pivot that the film moves around, and you connect as friends, but your lives are sort of moving in different directions. Tell me a little bit about the making of the film and sort of your thoughts about it, and really I think that sort of the lessons that the film imparts.
Yeah. I thank you for even bringing it up, because it is such a, I don't know, it's a cool thing. It was the beginning of everything in my life, honestly, well, really in my career. Because I booked it probably about 6 to 8 months after I had moved to New York. And Emily Abt was the writer and producer and director of the movie, and she had worked on that script for many years, and she's a brilliant writer, a professor at Princeton, I think, still to this day. But it's this coming-of-age story, something that she noted. DC specifically is highly segregated, and she said she went to some high schools and observed the kids and saw that, she said, class trumped race, that it was more about class division rather than race division. And so,
and Jessie does come from a very wealthy background.
Right, exactly. And so she just found that, or from her observation, she saw that it was more about your economic status, and that's what grouped the kids together rather than their race. And so there were also some elements of her own life that were in it too. But I played Tasha, who was this kid from the hood who was trying to get out, who was, had a sort of genius mind and was trying to get out and redefine herself. And then the other lead was played by the brilliant Louisa Krause.
Louisa Krause, who's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
She's so great.
She's phenomenal. And so yes, we strike up this friendship, and it gets tried and whatnot, but it's really this beautiful coming of age story about identity and about redefining yourself, about nature versus nurture. It was a lovely experience, and I was so green when I got it. It was the very first thing I did once I moved to New York. So it was a lot to suddenly be the co-lead of this movie. And I was just learning what the business was and what filmmaking was. I had come straight from theater, so I had to sort of learn on the go. And I would not take back that experience for anything. And it ended up being the beginning of everything for me.
You just said nature versus nurture. I think that's at the core of the film.
Yeah.
Because it seems like her mom is completely emotionally disconnected to her. And so she doesn't have that love the way that your character does. Your character, particularly your grandmother.
Right, played by the legendary Leslie Uggams.
Who's amazing.
Yes.
And so in that sense, Tasha is nurtured.
Right.
Whereas Jessie is not nurtured.
Correct.
And actually she's seeking recognition from her mom throughout the entire film. It's only at the very end of the film when she's just about fallen to the bottom that she finally reconnects with her mom. And your character gets the scholarship to Princeton, which is really fantastic. So it's kind of a little bit of redemption for both characters.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was such a joy to film.
Yeah,
as well.
I really recommend it. Toe to toe, you really should watch the film because it's really pretty moving.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful piece of work. I'd be remiss if we didn't touch at least for a second or two on Walking Dead because that's such a phenomenon. You're so great on the show. Just tell us a little bit about the experience and sort of what you got out of it. It was really a fun role.
Oh gosh, yes. Speaking of, okay, so Toe to Toe was the beginning. You know, Walking Dead was the establishment, I guess you could say, in my career because I had done quite a few things here and there, and then things really solidified with Walking Dead. And
where was that? Atlanta?
yeah, that's where it shoots.
Right.
Yeah. And or really like an hour south of Atlanta, but we say Atlanta. But you know, when I originally auditioned, I auditioned to be Michonne. I've told this story before. It was between me and Denai and one other woman, and of course they made the perfect choice with Denai. And then I ended up being, a role was sort of made for me on the show after that audition experience with Glenn Mazzara, who was the showrunner at the time. And so I thought it was just going to be a stint. And that was the way that's what it was when I first came on board. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then before I knew it, I was sort of contributing to the central storyline and had been given all this amazing stuff. And then of course what I finished with, I say this all the time, I consider, you know, it to be just short of poetry. So it just ended up being this revolution in my life. And being able to play this strong woman, this is something I don't say very often, but for a long time in the beginning of my career, I played teenagers for a while. I was in my early 20s when I did Toe to Toe, and my character in Toe to Toe was 17, and I think I was 23. And then I did another teenager in another film with writer-producer Victoria Mahoney and Zoe Kravitz and Gabby Sidibe. And Sharika Epps, and I didn't want to keep doing teenagers, but what I found in hindsight is that they gave me these rich characters to play because there wasn't a danger of being overly sexualized. I could just be these young, you know, these girls that are becoming women, figuring out who they are, and these women had, these young women had integrity. And it ended up just being such a firm foundation for me. So by the time I got Sasha, I had grown so much as a woman and then also as an artist. So I really, you know, it was just such a revolution in my life. And I had my son while I was on the show too. So it was such a, it was kind of a coming of age story for Sonequa, being on that show for 5 years. And I consider it my postgraduate degree because all I did was learn. I was just a sponge that entire 5 years, and I literally soaked up every ounce of life and learning that I could from it.
You have done some amazing work for Stand Up to Cancer. Can you tell people a little bit about that? Because it's an amazing organization and an amazing cause.
Yes, it is. I mean, cancer, you know, what are the statistics? I think, you guys, it's like 1 in 3 women and like 1 in 4 men. Or it might be switched.
It's touched pretty much every person here in one way or another.
It basically touches everyone. I come from a family where cancer runs rampant. My mother is a 3-time warrior. She's still here. She's kicking. She's fabulous.
My mom too.
Thank God. And so when the opportunity came my way, I didn't know much about Stand Up to Cancer. I had just sort of heard about them in passing. And I went to New Orleans the very first time they were giving out, they had innovative research grant recipients, and they were giving them the grants. And so we went to New Orleans, Kenrick and I, and got to talk to them. And what I loved about it was, what I loved the most about it, because I loved a lot of things, was that they had this sense of unity and community. In their research, it's not about competition. And unfortunately, from what I was told from them, even in science and in research, and in disease research, there is still a certain degree of competition, and notwithstanding to cancer. No matter what path you're in, no matter where you are, no matter what area of science, no matter what area of, the medical field you're in, everybody comes together and just gives what they know and what they've learned. It's like, okay, well, here's my research, here's my research, here's my research, and then they all come together, and it just makes them find things faster, right? It makes them solve problems faster. And that's what I really appreciated about it. I love when people can come together as a community with no ego.
Yeah, so everybody should go to their website, Stand Up to Cancer. Yeah, give her a nice hand for that. It's a really important cause, and it's a beautiful thing. You got to get back to the world. Okay, I know we have a lot of territory to cover about Michael Burnham. And by the way, congratulations, Saturn Award winner for Best Actress.
Thank you.
Well deserved. Okay. Season 2 was such a brain blaster. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the continuity, because the Red Angel saga is so crazy and so circuitous, and events that happen in Season 2 shaped the history of the character that even occurred in Season 1. So we're going to try and work our way through the maze, because it's very, very complicated, but we know that your parents were actually secretly, Michael's parents were secretly working for Section 31, the mysterious and nefarious Section 31, and they were working on a time travel suit, which coincidentally requires a time crystal, which Leland was able to secure. Leland, who would become so pivotal in the events of Season 2 in so many ways. And so, but there was the attack on the installation where they were working, and tragically, your father dies. Now, you thought, the world thought, that both parents died. But in fact, your mom, Gabrielle, got into the suit and escaped the future, which will then shape a whole series of events that ripple throughout Season 1 and Season 2. So, when the writers came to you and sort of proposed this amazing kind of odyssey, could you even wrap your own head about it? Because it's like...
Nah. I mean, I tried. There are so many decisions that were made during Season 2 that floored me, that were astounding to me. And just speaking as Michael Burnham, it was really amazing in terms of character development, to have all these different things that were tenets for Michael Burnham, cornerstones for Michael Burnham, be taken down one at a time. And that was really what happened over the course of the entire season, right? There was a little hint of it, some foreshadowing of it in Season 1 when I find out that Sarah had lied to me my entire adult life, and I thought I didn't get into the school. I felt like I was a failure to Vulcans. I felt like I hadn't proven myself.
Getting into the expeditionary group.
Absolutely. I thought at the Vulcan Expeditionary Group, I thought that I was carrying the torch of the human race my entire childhood, and proving that humans could be just as smart and just as good and just as competent. And then I felt like at the very end, after everything that I had done, I ended up failing. And so that shaped my career choice. That shaped my yearning to overcompensate. It shaped so much of me. And then finding that out in episode 6, that's the first time you see me decide, you know what, maybe I'm going to try to be my own woman. And so then in Season 2, you see all these things happen one by one. I mean, you see this incredible restoration with Saru. where it's that old adage of you don't know what you got till it's gone. It's like when we realize that we're gonna have to say goodbye and perhaps he's gonna pass on, how much we really respect and love each other. And so then that sort of that rival there, the bickering that you see in season 1 between Burnham and Saru, we decide to let go of. And it's like, you know what, we are standing in the gap for each other. Because I'm your sister essentially, and you're my brother, you know. And so that was a big one, to let go of that. And then to find out that I did not cause the death of my parents. And you can imagine as a child thinking that, believing that your parents died because of you.
Bearing that burden for so many years.
It 1000% shapes who you are. It has everything, it trickles into every aspect of your personality. It trickles into the soul, you know. And so to have that, oh gosh, I didn't cause their death. I'm not this sort of agent of destruction, that I had made this unconscious decision that I was. Then reuniting with my mother, then reuniting with Spock, because having to sort of break him down that way in order to save him was also something that imprinted on me. And so what I realized as Sonequa creating Michael is that this is a woman who unfortunately is driven by shame and guilt. And then you take into account the death of Prime Captain Georgiou, then you take into account the Klingon War, and you know, it's like there's a lot of burden.
I mean, some of that guilt was kind of inflicted on her by Saru, by her dad. And the thing that kills me is, like, just as an example, him withholding the information from you from the character about getting into, or wanting to get into the expeditionary group. He decides he wants to give it to Spock instead, and then Spock decides to go to Starfleet.
Right.
So I mean, what the hell? He squandered her opportunity. It was a very, very bad decision, and you know, Spock didn't even end up doing that.
It was just like the light and freedom that comes from forgiveness was a big one, because coming out of the Klingon War at the end of 1, coming into you know, all of the signals and the light. The Red Angel, and it was so much about forgiveness and about restoration, and like I just said, with Saru, with Spock, with my mom, and then everybody was sort of on their own journey of that as well. And then even, you know, I would hear people say, how did you forgive Tyler so easily? But I really do think that allowing myself to open up and really be this xenoanthropologist who accepts other cultures and being able to see things from a different lens and being able to forgive him, I really think it made room, this sort of like, it made room almost in the spirit for the forgiveness of Spock to come through. And so it just became this enlightening time. And then going to the future, right? And making the decision to leave everything behind and go into the future. To save all sentient life, you know. Here we have another opportunity for freedom. It's really
but Michael proved her worth at the Vulcan Science Academy, where essentially she was at top of class, and ultimately, though, you ended up on the Shenzhou, and there you met what would become your mentor, Philippe Georgiou, the great Michelle Yeoh.
the great Michelle Yeoh.
So, what were your impressions when you first met Michelle and you kind of mapped out what that relationship was going to be?
Oh my gosh, well, yeah, so she's a legend, and she's so, you know, she's so graceful and so loving. You know, I just couldn't have asked for a better genesis on the show. We just became so close so quickly and so easily. And, you know, we had some really amazing times together, and we both loved this relationship. We loved this relationship that was based in mutual love and mutual respect. There was this professional courtesy between the two of them, but there was very much a mother-daughter. And so we really loved that. We loved that we, you know, we really listened to each other and leaned on each other, and you could see just how much life she had given me. From the very first episode the very first time you see us meeting, when I come to the ship, when Sarah sort of drops me off, and it's like she gave me the approval that I needed. Not that you want to seek approval, but she understood me, and she showed appreciation for me, and it ended up emboldening me.
Well, over the course of time, you were awarded the rank of first officer, which is impressive.
Absolutely.
Which I also think kind of upset Saru, because he
big.
was kind of aiming for that position, and he didn't get it. So, and you two had a sort of a kind of a somewhat cantankerous relationship to begin with.
We did, because there was a lot of jealousy there, because, you know, he said, as he says in season 1, you know, I was angry with you because I felt that you sort of took what, you know, I wanted. Not just the position of number 1, but also the attention and the, you know, sort of tutelage of Captain Georgiou. So that was a big undercurrent of the conflict between us. And how much do we love Doug Jones?
I love Doug Jones. The crazy thing about Doug is that I've worked with him for years because he's done all of Guillermo del Toro's films. He does all these crazy creatures in the Del Toro.
He's a master.
He's a Silver Surfer. I mean, yeah. So he's the most remarkable actor.
Genius actor.
Yeah.
Maybe he's an angel. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Now, anyway, at the advent of the Klingon Federation War, things start to unravel between you and Georgiou on the Shenzhou.
Right.
And the question of how provocative and aggressive the Klingons are going to be, it becomes a dilemma for ship's command in terms of deciding, are we going to preemptively attack them or not? And the rise of Takuma as a potential political and social and almost religious figure is also something that is a great threat. So what is Burnham's mindset at that time? Because she actually will disobey her commander to...
Absolutely. Well, in that moment, you know, there were a lot of walls up to protect myself as Michael, coming from Vulcan, going into Starfleet, not having wanted to go into Starfleet. There was a lot of arrogance. There was a lot of thinking that I was right because I was so logic-based. But you know what I found is that in that moment of greatest pressure, when the Klingons come, being someone who was very familiar with annihilation, there was just the overwhelming fear of it happening again. And not wanting to be that agent of destruction again, because it wasn't just my parents, it was also Spock, but then it was also those Vulcan kids and teachers who were killed in the bombing of the Learning Center when the extremists were trying to take me out. So I could not let that happen again.
You feel very persecuted.
Absolutely.
Feelings of persecution.
Yes, feelings of persecution, but also feelings of being responsible for that persecution, and for not wanting to be responsible again, and for knowing that history would say, experiential knowledge would say, that these Klingons are coming to kill us, and making the decision in the moment that I will sacrifice everything. I will sacrifice my career, my life, and my freedom to save everyone, because it's worth it, because I just know that they're coming to kill us. And so this mutiny, you know, I think Sarek says to me, you know, this war would have started anyway. I think he says it in episode, I forget which episode of season 1, it's toward the beginning, first half for sure. But he says, you know, you shouldn't, I'm paraphrasing, but you shouldn't sort of think that it was your fault, because they were coming to attack you anyway. That was going to happen no matter what. It's when he tells me that we need to fire on the ship, actually, or when I glean from the conversation that that's what we should do. But it's just this, it was a matter of trying to rewrite history and save lives and taking the risk.
Well, they stop you from preemptively firing at the ship, but you do hatch the plan for you and Felipa to try and go and get to Kuvma.
Right.
And that spirals horribly out of control. He kills her, and then you kill Takuma. And so exactly what you were trying to avoid occurs. Takuma becomes the martyr that you wanted to avoid.
Exactly, and that's what I end up saying at the end of the season when I'm talking to the Admiral about how I made decisions based on what I thought was best. I've done that already, but I won't do that again. I can't do that again because that's not Starfleet. You can't do these things in a vacuum. You can't think that just because your intentions are good, it's the same. The means don't justify the end. You can't think that you have the right course of action for a group of people. You have to be unified. And that is what Starfleet represents. It's community and unity. It's universality. It's commonality. And so you have to set yourself down. Your intelligence, your, everything that you think you know, you have to set that down and submit it to the majority. And that's what it means to be in service. That's what it means to be Starfleet,
Well, but you end up going to prison.
Yeah.
And which is a bad situation. And then in that fateful time when you're on that prison transport, and the transport is attacked, and who comes to the rescue but Discovery? Enter Discovery. And not only Discovery, but Captain Gabriel Lorca. Seems like such a good guy. I mean, Lorca. Let's hear for the great Jason Isaacs.
Played by the brilliant Jason Isaacs.
So good. I love him in Harry Potter too.
Yes.
Little did we know back in season 1, at that point, the Machiavellian plot that he had and what his plans were for you. Also, it's sort of ironic that in the mirror universe, and do we love the mirror universe or what, right? We love it. That Emperor Georgiou and Burnham had a very similar relationship, and she looked upon Burnham as a daughter, but then Burnham ends up having that Mary Burnham has a romantic relationship with Lorca, and they are plotting against the Emperor. And those facts only become apparent later on. But now you've been brought onto the Discovery, and you actually are given a kind of redemption, and you're made a science officer, which is a great new start for you. And then one of the first things that happens and shapes all the course of coming events is the tardigrade, and the discovery of the mycelial network, and the development of spore drive, which gives Discovery an advantage which, honestly, is even better than warp and transwarp capabilities that we see in future Star Trek, which begs the question that still has not been answered: whatever did happen to the spore drive, that technology was not still being used in future Star Trek continuity. We're going to have to find out about that in the future. They haven't revealed how that's happening yet. But okay, so now, and then you show what an empathic character Burnham is by realizing that the use of the tardigrade is slowly killing it.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly see myself in the tardigrade, for sure. I have a conversation with Commander Landry about it, played by the brilliant Rekha Sharma. Is she not brilliant? I love her. But it's, immediately, this being is seen as a villain, and it's, why do you so quickly believe that this being is evil?
And a slave.
Absolutely.
It's a slave.
And so we find out that no, this being is just protecting itself. It's its self-defense mechanism, and it's the very key. And so I can't help but see myself in that. And I was very inspired as Michael Burnham by the tardigrade, because here is something that is seen as this agent of destruction that actually ends up being the key, the answer to the problem, the great solution that ends up opening a new pathway of travel for us that allows us to save the world, And so I couldn't help but be inspired by this being and say, well, maybe I could be the key. And not in a boastful way at all, but in a way of maybe I can contribute. Maybe I can contribute to life. And that's what I'm going to commit myself in a new way to do.
Well, the good news is that they're able to have stamets actually become a sort of a biological interface, which allows them to, against orders, free the tardigrade,
right.
So at least it gets away, and the ship still has the ability to do spore drive. Right. And the consequences of that is that also is part of what helps to shift the balance and the winning of the Klingon Federation War, which is amazing. It also helps Lorca facilitate his ability to get back to the mirror universe. So it's serving a good thing, but it's also accidentally serving a nefarious thing. And the next thing you know, he has manipulated stamets into making a few jumps, and they end up in the mirror universe.
Right.
So when the writers told you that they were going to be doing this whole mirror universe arc, I mean, what did you think about it? And
oh my gosh.
did they tell you the end game at that point?
Yeah.
Had you known before that what the Lorca end game was, or did they keep you in the dark?
No, we knew. Quite a few of us knew, and especially because we had so much to do together. So we knew that was coming, and we were all very excited about the Mirror Universe because it's just so canon. It's just juicy canon, right? And so we were really excited to do that, and then all the themes that came up as a result of this Mirror Universe. Like I remember distinctly, the conversations that Burnham had with Tilly about what it means to succeed in this Mirror Universe, in a place where the only way you get ahead is through evil, right? It's
Aggression.
It's through aggression and violence and, ego. The egomania of the Mirror Universe is, it's unspeakable. And so we talked about how they don't have real strength, that it's not real strength because it's based in fear. And so that's what I love about every single plot point on our show, every single story point, is that you can zoom out on it and see a theme of the entire show, and ultimately a theme of the entire, world of Star Trek, in all of its iterations, right? Because it's about how true strength is not fear-based, and making decisions that only get you solely ahead that's never what it's about. And that's not real love, that's not real service, right? And so that's what I love.
I can't believe that time is getting away from us. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to open up the questions.
Gotcha.
Just a couple of more characters to talk about. Ash, I love Ash.
Yes.
I love Shazad, right?
Yes, Shazad.
Fans out there.
And Mary Wiseman, speaking of Tilly. And Anthony. And Wilson.
I love the fact that Ash ends up being a Manchurian candidate. Ends up being a sleeper agent. Yeah. That arc was great. Did they give it some advance warning about that?
Oh yeah, we knew about that as well. And Shazad is such a beast that it was really invigorating watching him work. It really was. I mean, I feel that way about everyone. And then just to name, since we are going to be moving on, I mean, Wilson coming back, Culber coming back to life. Because now we're in, we've moved on a little bit, but it's been amazing to see each individual character's journey, especially with Mary Chieffo as well, with Laurel. Her and I are really excited about how we ended the war together. And there was a line that unfortunately got cut in the finale of 1 when we say, today we are no longer enemies. And so we really appreciated women coming together that way, especially her serving as this matriarch of the Klingon Empire, which is typically patriarchal. It was really exciting to do that. And then too, also seeing Admiral Cornwell give herself the way that she did. What I love so much about that brilliant woman is just the way she brings such a sense of integrity to her work, and in that last shot of her when she decides to sacrifice herself on the Enterprise, she just stands there at attention.
It's amazing and sad. So season 2 comes and we get to meet Captain Pike, Anson Mount, right? We love him too, right?
Anson Mount.
And all of the great flashbacks to Talos 4 and the whole feeling back of the era of the menagerie and that incredible Roddenberry invention, and wrapping that continuity into it is so incredible.
Right.
And of course, he is assigned by Federation to investigate the red signals. And the crazy thing is that we eventually are thinking that it's Michael's mom that is sending all these messages, but in fact, through an additional time warp, it appears as if it's actually Michael herself. First, when the Red Angel was first revealed, it is her mom. But ultimately, it seems as if it was Michael that made most of those signals. Did I get that right? Or?
Absolutely, yes. It was Michael Burnham. It was me that made the signals. I jumped back in time from that point in the war in order to stop it from happening.
Right, and the whole message of that second season about the threat of artificial intelligence and control. Why the hell they let this control have access like Skynet to the entire fleet? I have no idea. But I love the idea that it is AI out of control, and it's going for that the sphere data, which will give it an alien competitive edge, and then our possible future is our whole galaxy is wiped out.
Right.
And so you're fighting to save the future now.
Fighting to save all sentient life forever, right? And you know, we lost a lot of people. You know, speaking of Shazad and Jane and Ethan and Anson and James Frayne, who's Sarah, and Mia, who was Amanda, you know, so many, and Mary, Chifo, Laurel, so many people who have made such an impact on the show that our show would not be what it is without these people. It's like their characters all, I just love how everyone came together, everyone made the same sacrifice. Everyone decided, I'm gonna give everything that I have for this. And if that's not, you know, if that's not Starfleet, if that's not the Federation, if that's not Star Trek, you know, I don't know what is. Right?
Yes, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. We're just going to questions, but my last question is, what about you as Sonequa think about artificial intelligence and this convergence of computer mind and human mind? Are we going to have a future, do you think, where we're going to be threatened by artificial intelligence? Can it have a malevolent end? I mean, I worry about things like that.
Oh man, well we've seen so many stories like that, haven't we?
I know, we've been kind of freaked out by Terminator and a lot of different
and you know, iRobot, and you know, we've seen so many stories of this, of when we sort of give over a lot of our decision making.
Our autonomy.
Yeah, our autonomy. We give away our creativity. We give away our, you know, our relational capacity to AI. And it seems that when we go too far is when we suffer, right?
You could be in the Matrix right now, for all we know.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite movie.
So I mean, that's why I just thought that the whole control thing and the ultimate core of what was happening, the fight for the future, was because of AI taking control, was a great central spine for the second season.
Thank you, I agree. I think our writers are absolutely brilliant. And I love that they did that, because something that could, it's true, Joe, tell me. But it's true, because I think something that, if I'm remembering correctly, something Control says is that, you know, we just are destroying each other, you know, and so it's like, so you guys gotta go, you know, because you just destroy each other, and that's one of the central themes of Star Trek, is us rising above that, right? And us not spreading death or not pressing ourselves onto each other, but acknowledging those who are different from us, acknowledging the life and culture of others, and valuing it and not stripping it away, right? And so you see the opposite end of the spectrum, and what we're trying to fight against, and what we allow to you know, sort of catalyze us to create this sort of utopia that we have now. It's so that we wouldn't continue to destroy each other. I mean, this world is very dark right now, right? And so in Star Trek, they've created this world where we have stopped doing that. And so it's very interesting to have Control, you know, sort of representing that point of view of, well, this is what humans do. And it's almost as if all of us on Discovery had to say, well, that's not what we're going to do.
And it was a brilliant second season. Congratulations on your amazing achievement.
Thank you so much.
And we are so excited about season 3. Can't wait. Okay, and on that note, let's take it out to questions. Here we go.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Rocking the glasses, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, my journey with Star Trek has been this experience of mind to heart and back. Like, I remember growing up and being really intrigued by all the philosophy and all the strange questions and all that. And now watching everything again, and especially Discovery, like, I'm moved to tears basically every episode. And especially by your great performances this season. Like, you can see Burnham digging into her emotion.
Thank you.
So my curiosity is, how do you see Burnham sort of representing and you going forward, integrating mind and heart, and how does that reflect maybe your own experiences with this?
What a wonderful question. Thank you. I think that I could almost liken mind and heart to, as far as Michael Burnham is concerned, I could liken mind and heart to mind being Vulcan and heart being human, right? And so there's this nature versus nurture situation where there's the humanity that I could never escape, and then there's the Vulcan upbringing that I find it hard to escape, right? And so I think for Burnham, it's been about finding not just the balance between Vulcan and human, but finding the value of the balance between Vulcan and human. And so in season 1, you see me on one end of the spectrum being as Vulcan as I possibly can be. And then in season 2, you see me on the other end of the spectrum being as human as I can possibly be. And I liken it to a pot boiling with the top on it. Finally, after holding that boiling water, man, the top came off and it just came rushing out, right? So it seemed like a very highly emotional. My old mentor, when I was in college, he taught me that it was mostly a matter of focus. And he said, theater actors are often told to be smaller, when you transition from theater to the screen. They'll say, can you be smaller? Can you be smaller? Because you're so used to presenting the story and reaching the rafters in the back. And so what he said to me was, well, it's not a matter of big or small. It's a matter of shifting your focus. And so whereas you present everything in theater, with the screen, it's all inside. It's all still there, and it's just as big. It's just that it's not as readily presented, right? And so I can just be thinking it and living it, and you'll see it. Whereas that you're never going to see that if I just think and I don't present it to you in a theater, right? That's the biggest thing, is the shift of focus and turning it from a presentation to an inner experience.
Right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
Me
afternoon.
again.
Hello, good to see you again.
2 years ago, my favorite trek was Deep Space Nine, and I still love it. But there's only one show in the world that I will organize my life around, and that is Star Trek Discovery, and it's because of you. You are a goddess. That's all there is to it. Thank you.
Yes, she is. That's awesome.
Jesus is Lord. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Sonequa.
Hello.
You're awesome. You know that, right?
Thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you. I read in your bio that you wanted to be a psychologist for a while, and then you decided to get into acting, and you said they were sort of synonymous. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you for your question. I was always fascinated with why people do what they do, and I was fascinated with human thought and human behavior. And so I think in that way, they are so similar. Because for me as an actor, it's all about creating this person who is off the page and taking ownership of the story, which is why I say I, which is why I'm like, Michael Burnham, I. It's me taking ownership of it, and it's me creating this world as specifically as I possibly can, utilizing my imagination as much as I possibly can. And so really finding out why I'm doing what I'm doing, what my thought and behavior is, what my memories are, what my soul is made of. So to me, in that way, it seems very, very much like psychology, right? Because that's essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to psychology class when I approach someone and sort of finding this person within me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Sonequa, for many years, Kate Mulgrew has told audiences about a lot of the struggles and a lot of the challenges that she faced as a female lead in a Star Trek series. I mean, there'd be a lot of judgments against her, a lot of, people watching her. If you were to meet Kate Mulgrew today, would you tell her that, oh, I know what you're going through, or I know what you went through, I mean, I've been there before too, or would you tell her, everything is different nowadays for a female Star Trek lead? I mean, none of those things exist like they did back in the 1990s.
What a good question. I would tell her, I unfortunately have experienced what she's talking about just as a woman in this career, and especially as a black woman in this career. I have a most definitely experienced a lot about that, but I will tell her also that because she paved the way for me, her and a few other people, and because I stand on her shoulders, I can assure her that it is much better now.
Thank God.
Because of her, and because of a lot of people. Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Sonequa.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jay. I'm from Phoenix.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you regarding the first half of the season finale. I finally watched it 4 days ago. The scene where your friends come to tell you, we're not going to let you do this alone, we're going to go with you. which solidifies the importance of what Star Trek taught me as a little boy. I'm on the autism spectrum, and it taught me how to make friends and to have friendship and duty, loyalty, and honor. I want to know, when you got the script for the first half of the finale and you read that scene, what was your initial reaction to it? And then when it came time to prepare to film that scene, how did you prepare for it?
That's making me cry. Thank you for the question. Okay, I'm okay. I got it. Okay. You know, I was overwhelmed by that scene. Shout out to the writers again, because it was so much like. You know, you don't always get a scene like that that's so tangible, where you can really see the sacrifice right in front of you that you make for your friend, you know. And if I may quote Jesus himself, he said that there is no greater love than a man is willing to give his life for his friends. And that's what they did, and so I could barely take it when I first read it. And it is very much about, that is very much what Star Trek is about. It's about being willing to give everything for the person next to you. It's about having enough love and courage to do that. And speaking of, you know, friendship, loyalty, and honor, in preparation for it, I knew it was going to be really, really easy because of how close we all really are.
Sacrifice is a pretty central theme of the character.
It is, and that's the central theme for everyone, right? And the loyalty and the honor that really is there. And then what I really love too is that you sort of see this crew come together as a family in that moment. And you know, since we were a prequel, and since this is all about discovery, and since we needed to become who we're going to ultimately be, unlike the other iterations, I love that you get to see the real genesis of it in that moment right there. And then we get to go to this future together to save the world. And then ultimately we, in real life, are doing this together as well and building this community. And we don't do it, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every single person is contributing to it. And took it and agreed and said, we will be a family and we will do this together and we will be unified and we will let love lead the way. And that's what you see in this moment. So it was this beautiful moment of art and life coming together.
And we're going to end on that note. We've actually surpassed our time. We're going to go another hour.
Okay, I also want to shout out, do you guys think, how do y'all feel about my husband, Henry Green, being my dad? Isn't that something? And Kenneth Mitchell as well. I want to, speaking of those people who made a mark, got a shout. How brilliant is he?
We love him.
I love you guys.
All right, well, what can I say? Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Onwards and upwards. Sonequa MartinGreen.